Failure feels permanent because the mind doesn't record events. It records meaning. When something goes wrong, the brain doesn't just log what happened. It asks a faster, quieter question. What does this say about me? And once that meaning attaches, it sticks. Not because it's accurate, but because it's efficient. The brain treats failure as a threat to continuity. If something breaks your sense of forward motion, it gets stored with extra weight. Memory flags it as something to avoid repeating, so it stays close to the surface. That's why one mistake can feel louder than years of competence. Time doesn't erase it, because time isn't what made it heavy. Interpretation did. Failure also freezes context. You remember the outcome, but not the conditions. The pressure, the missing information, the timing, the constraints. The environment disappears, and the self absorbs the blame. So the failure stops being a moment and becomes an identity-adjacent fact. I failed quietly turns into, this is who I am, when it counts. But that permanence is an illusion created by compression. In reality, most failures are situational. They belong to a specific version of you, under specific conditions, responding with the tools you had at the time. But memory doesn't store versions. It stores conclusions. That's why growth often feels harder than endurance. Endurance lets the story stay the same. Growth requires reopening the meaning and recontextualizing the event. And reopening feels risky because it threatens the certainty you built around it. The mind prefers a painful conclusion to an unresolved one. So failure feels permanent, not because it defines you, but because it hasn't been re-seen in full dimension yet. When context returns, permanence loosens. Not because the past changes, but because the story stops pretending it was the whole picture.